dive right into it. What I've prepared today is related to a bit of a journey that I thought I would take you through when it comes to kind of starting your career and what you could do before you've graduated and before you kind of the panic kicks in, what you should do with your life, work and profession wise. And then what happens, how that journey map basically looks like by the time you land your first job, and how you can maximize on each and every step of the way there. I also am going to try to incorporate some of the questions that I got before the talk. But if you do have any questions along the way, please pop them into the chat. And I will address those after we've covered the roadmap. All right, so to start us off, most of you or all of you actually are now studying or are kind of coming close to your graduation date. And I thought that, I would lead with this and open up with this because this is still really a great opportunity for you to start connecting with companies that, might be of use to you when you start looking for a job. And the reason why I'm saying this is, when I was studying and I was in my, I don't know, third, fourth year of studies before graduation, I just thought, why would I bother right now? I'm not going to apply for jobs. But actually, this is the right time to do it because many companies, Kolibri Games included, actually invest a lot in events and fairs where we actually go and speak to universities and students so that we can create connections and then afterwards hire these fresh graduates into intern positions or junior level roles. So this is really a great opportunity for you while you are studying, right? To get access to recruiters and to companies that you might want to connect with in order to apply to them in the future. And it's also a really great way to already meet some key people that would be part of your hiring process. And by that, I don't mean only recruiters, but oftentimes, even from our end, we would sometimes send our, for example, game developers or somebody from the technical team to actually participate in these fairs and answer any technical questions that the students in this case might have. So one important thing that I'd like to mention here is that you can already start building your network here. And after the fair, connecting with the recruiter that you met, reaching out to them on LinkedIn. I can guarantee you every recruiter you meet will have a LinkedIn account. Just shoot a very short message and tell them, it was lovely to meet you. I would love to keep in touch. I really like your company. And I'd love for you to, maybe consider me when I graduate. And I'll keep in touch if that's okay. Nobody's going to say no to that. All right. So the next thing here that you can do when it comes to maximizing kind of on the time, the limited time I know that you have during your studies, is actually building up your portfolio. Now, I got a few questions from you when it comes to, how can I get into the gaming industry without having had any experience with creating games before, maybe, or, game art or game design or game development specifically. I do not really have anything to show to the companies that I can do the job. Well, it's really, conferences like this, hackathons, are really a great way for you to get access to these kind of hobby or pet projects that you can then put into your portfolio, put on your GitHub account, maybe, no matter how simple it is, package it nicely, and then include that with your CV. So this is something that you can start collecting during your studies. Those of you who like visiting events of that sort, it's really important for us when we look at CVs of people who have just graduated. We do not have expectations of you having this super thick portfolio where you can show off an X amount of games that you've created. What we want to and like to see is that you have kind of kept yourself busy and that you had the drive and passion and proactiveness to actually work on some projects during your studies. So I would definitely advise you to take the best out of this time and these events that are now in digital form and that are really easy to visit, really easy to participate in, to actually build up your portfolio when you start applying for jobs. Now, another thing that I thought would really be useful is when it comes to building your network. And I know this is such a scary word sometimes, and especially for introverts, which I consider myself to be as well. Especially before, it was really, really hard kind of reaching out to people, inviting people for a coffee. You know, how do you know whom you reach out to? What if they say no? Then you kind of feel uncomfortable, you know, maybe I shouldn't have reached out at all. But what I mean here by building your network is not actually just randomly contacting people on LinkedIn. It's actually really using the peer network that you have right now. So connecting with the people who are, you know, who might be studying with you and might have similar interests, but also, as I mentioned, connecting with recruiters who are putting themselves out there to connect with students or partner with universities. So you can definitely easily access companies that are collaborating with your current uni, and then see who the contact person there might be, connecting with them, as I mentioned, adding them on LinkedIn. So using the opportunity that you have right now, that companies are kind of pitching themselves to you while you're still studying, to actually create a short list for yourself, and say, you know, I've talked to a recruiter from an X company, and I actually did not really like their approach to work. I did not like, you know, the way that they support women or young women in their organization. I'm going to pass on them, right? So that's time saved that you maybe otherwise would have put into an application once you graduate. And you want to focus on companies that really inspire you in this process. So meeting the recruiters, meeting the companies, asking them questions, you know, about how they're doing things, how they're supporting their fresh graduates who join the company, their interns, what kind of growth opportunities they have. And I think it's a really great time for you right now to do this, because these are not interviewing processes, right? So when companies have a fair, or they have a booth during a conference, and you approach a recruiter or somebody from HR or somebody from the tech team, it's actually not as stressful as walking into an interview afterwards and actually being able to ask these questions. You don't know, you know, how many questions is too many. Sometimes you're nervous, right? Because you don't know what you're going to be asked. You don't think you did well on the technical test. So use this time again to actually ask all of these questions and make a short list for yourself what kind of companies you want to work for. And then the scary part of or maybe not so scary, of job applications comes and interviewing. So one thing that I'd really like to address here, and again, it was one of the questions that kept recurring before this talk, and that is, you know, what if I didn't study at a fancy uni, or what if they ask, you know, for a specific university type or a degree type, but I have, you know, my portfolio is strong because I've done some work on the side. And I have a bit of a shocking statistics here when it comes to gender and how men and women apply for jobs. And there's this research that says that men apply for jobs if they're 60% fit, and women apply for jobs if they are 100% fit. So what that means is that statistically, just statistically speaking, if you are a woman, you would open a job application and you might have a degree in, you know, software development, and the company says, you know, we're hiring intern game developers in this case, and we would really love it if you had a bachelor's degree in game design or in game development, and you would just skip. You would say, that's not what I have. Yes, maybe I worked with so we work with C#, for example, and Unity as our development engine, but I haven't really worked with Unity. I have worked with C#, but I don't have a degree. So just go ahead and apply. I'm saying this first because I see this as like the #1 reason why people who start applying, fresh graduates who start applying for jobs, actually skip on opportunities that might actually materialize in job offers and like really good career paths. So #1 thing, remember, don't let that stop you. Build up your portfolio, build up a nice clean CV, send your application in anyways. So the next thing that companies like to see, again, one of the questions, you know, what does Kolibri Games like to see when we open CVs? Again, we don't expect you to have 3 pages of, you know, achievements and a lot of stuff in your portfolio. But what we like to see is growth mindset. We like to see people who invest in some learning opportunities on the side, or maybe, as I said, in pet projects, and especially for careers in for what we call product-related positions. So that's art, game design, game development. We love to see stuff in the portfolio. These are some of the positions where the portfolio is really kind of an essential addition to your CV. Here you have the chance to actually show that, you know, maybe you have studied software development and now you want to get a job in the gaming industry, and you're going to show off maybe a small project that you did with C#, for instance. It doesn't need to be a game, but it can also be, right? It can be something really small and kind of it can just be sort of a pet project, but it will show that, you know, you had the initiative and proactiveness to work on this, so that you kind of pre-planned this move into the industry, rather than just kind of you're applying to every job out there because you just want to get a job, which is still fine, but it's not going to give you the advantage when it comes to all the other applicants that are applying. And then the third one is do the research. So what I mean by this is, when you are applying for a junior position, right? When you're a fresh graduate, you don't really have a lot of chances if you don't have a strong portfolio, right? So you should have that. If you do not, it's really hard to stand out. And the reason for that is simply that you do not have the experience to kind of give you the advantage over other applicants, right? When you have a position that requires 3 to 5 years of experience, that can really vary. That can go from, you know, spot on experience in the same company that makes idle games, that's, you know, our case, free to play mobile games, or somebody else who has just worked on maybe, you know, Xbox games. So it's not a spot on profile. When you're a fresh graduate, you don't have this luxury. So what you have to rely on is writing a good cover letter. So do your research about the company. If you have connected with the recruiter beforehand, even better, you can just shoot an email or a LinkedIn message to the recruiter that you met maybe a year ago, maybe some few months ago, and you can kick off the process in such a way. And make sure to mention, you know, why you think the company might be the right fit for you. Nobody's expecting you here to kind of know exactly what the company is doing and what kind of growth opportunities maybe they offer. But every company nowadays really has a blog where you can go and actually read a little bit about what they do. So on our blog, for example, on kolibrigames.com, you can find any sort of a thing when it comes to hiring, from how to get a job at Kolibri Games, how does the process look like, what does a game designer do, what does a game developer do, what does a product manager do. So you get the drill, right? So you have so much content available to you. Get to know the company and kind of know already, be prepared to talk a bit about why you want to work for the company and what excites you about them. Now the interviewing part comes. And here I'm going to show you briefly how the process looks for us, because I got a few questions about how the interviewing process looks like when it comes to applying for a job in games. So I'm going to take you to that slide, and then we will go back to the roadmap. So this is how this looks like for us at Kolibri Games. So you would send in your application. It would be checked by a recruiter. So it would always be the recruiter when it comes to us who would see your application. And then based on what you've submitted, if we think that there is a fit, we would invite you for what we call a recruiter screen. This would be a 30-minute call, sometimes audio, sometimes video, depending on what you're comfortable with. And we would basically cover off very kind of, I would say, so the motivation for applying for the role, kind of surface level information that just makes we get to make sure that we're passing you on to the hiring manager and you have a high chance of getting hired, kind of a thing. So we are that first filter in the process. We would discuss with you potentially, if it's a junior position, you know, what kind of role you see yourself working in down the line, you know, what kind of things you do to keep yourself updated when it comes to maybe tech, when it comes to gaming, again, depending on your portfolio. And then if this goes well, the next step would be a technical test. For product positions, this is usually always the case. If you're applying for a game design position and you've never worked with Unity before, maybe you're creating games, but you have worked with C#, for example, it will be something related to what you have done before, right? So we really want to set you up for success here. So we are not going to try and kind of make you fail or give you something that's too hard. So then after the test, if that goes well, you would get to speak to one of the developers in the company. So it would be kind of your senior, but still on that kind of peer level. You still would meet your supervisor. And this person would be able to tell you a little bit more about the team, how they work, how the sprints work. And then following that, they would also ask you questions related to the test. So it would be a little bit technical in nature. And then the next step would be the video call with your potential supervisor. That would be more on higher level kind of team fit. You would be able to discuss in this round also what kind of thing you're interested in doing, how you want to grow, how we can help you get there if we have opportunities of that sort for you. And then the last step of the process would be 1 or 2 on-site days that now we're doing remotely, obviously because of the pandemic. But this would be kind of a full day spent with the company where you would actually really get to meet us, get to know the community that we have at work, and really make sure that we are the right fit for you. So this is the process. I'm going to take us back, mindful of the time. So basically, it's similar with other companies as well. But what I'd like to really stress out here quickly is try the product. So one of the questions were, how can I impress the recruiter? How can I impress the hiring team? What can I do to prepare myself? Well, our games in particular are free to play. Every gaming company out there now, 99.9% has a free game that you can download, including Ubisoft has a mobile game that you can download that's free to play. There is no excuse for you not to try the product, right? You don't need to love it. You don't need to give kind of an expert critique of it, but definitely try it out so that you're able to, at least in one sentence, say, I tried your product. I applied because I really felt like I would love to work on the game. The UI or UX was really immersive. I really dived right into it. I got hooked. So I definitely love to hear a bit more from you about how you structure your sprints, or how does the new feature get shipped, kind of a thing. So that's a really great way. I cannot tell you how good of a way that is for you to stand out from other applicants. And then next up, always ask questions. Prepare your questions beforehand. They're really, if you don't use this opportunity, I'm not going to say it's going to look bad, but it's going to look good if you have questions prepared that are geared towards you really showing like you want to have a good understanding of whether we, in this case, might be the right organization for you. And then landing the job, and then progressing in your job. One thing that I've seen, and I really feel like this is particularly prominent when it comes to women, is kind of withdrawing a little bit at the beginning and waiting for things to be given to us, waiting a little bit to kind of be included, to be invited to the table. And I feel like we really need to kind of open up these conversations, make ourselves kind of just take the seat ourselves, basically, and just be a little bit more proactive. Ask to learn new things, ask about things that you're curious about. If there's any time when you can ask the stupidest questions, it's in your first couple of months in your new job. So really use this to the best, in the best way that you can. And this is really going to set you up for success in the months to follow.